Everything reflects. Everything reflects. Your green shirt reflects a little more than her black sweater. Blue jeans reflect probably a little more than the black tights. But everything reflects. So where do we see our subjects? Do we see the light? There's a big light right up there coming down here, throwing a deep shadow on my eyes, which makes me look very mysterious, don't you think? Big light up here, you can't see the light. You only see the light reflecting back to you. Light is photography. It's a painting with light. Light on the subject. So I started thinking a long time ago about how I'm shooting and how my subjects would start showing me the light. Even things that were matte will show you the light, and we have some samples. So what I want you to think in this workshop is light from the subject back. Every subject has a way of presenting light back to you. We're going to use terms like presenting. Light is presented back to the camera from your subject. And we use different rules. We got a couple rules in photography. One is angle of incidence, angle of reflection. We're going to go through that. Everything reflects, that's a rule. We have different areas of lighting that we're going to talk about really specifically that are fairly rules, specular highlights, shadow, detail, transitions. These are rules. But where there are no rules is what you do with that to make your photograph. And it's your photograph. Let's take a look at this. Oh, it's up there. I promise, by the way, when I'm doing these presentations, if any of you corporate folks are here, I won't stand here and go, why light matters. I'm going to take for granted that y'all can read. So that's up there for you. This is a set of pool balls on a table. Without lighting, it's not very pretty. But what happens is I've used light here to create lights and shadows. I have transitions that are smooth. We know that the balls are round. We see the shapes. We know that it's wood. We also know that the background's kind of shiny, don't we? We just intrinsically know that. Because from the time we're about 3 or 4 days old, we start to see the world. We know what things are wet. You don't have to go outside. If you look out the window and the street's shiny, it's wet, right? It doesn't just, no one buffed it. It's wet. We know that things are wet or shiny. We know that shiny things are smooth. There's never really ever been a very shiny cactus. You know, we know that a cactus has thorns because we can see the detail and we can see the texture. We know old wood is got splinters because of the way the light reflects back to you, presents back to you, tells us about the subject. So in this subject we have round surfaces, we have different colored surfaces, we have deep reds and blacks, and we have whites, and yet the light is presented back to us differently, isn't it? There's no softbox on this ball, but there is on this one. That's why subject-centric lighting matters. If I could just say it. That's why subject-centric lighting matters, because our subjects change. The light isn't different. Subject's different. It presents back to you differently from the chalk than it does the wood. We know these pool cues here are shiny because we actually feel them. You can feel the wood. In your head, you can just see it. Light matters because we can control what our pictures and our images do. And there we go. So in this particular shot, this is a shadow side of a warehouse, not very appealing lighting-wise, kind of shadowy. And so I just put a light to come in from the side. It's a light, an umbrella, to give the hero of the shot something to bathe in. It's a bathing light. So we've created this area of light so you can see that she's the hero, and it falls off. No Photoshop in this. We didn't darken or burn or dodge or what have you. It's pretty much the shot. I think I lighten these up a little bit. But we use light to isolate, to set apart, to take our subjects to places where they may not be in reality. Could we have shot this in pure shade? Sure. In natural light, there's nothing wrong with natural light. I use natural light all the time. But we did something a little bit different with light to isolate here. Some seashells that I love to collect seashells, and so does my daughter. So I decided one day to take a bunch of pictures of seashells. About once a week, I try to do a thing I call improv, where I take one thing and shoot it for an hour. I limit myself to an hour to see how many different shots I can get. And this was shot on the, actually shot on the front porch with a diffuser panel leaning up on a stand and the sun. And it's very soft light, and yet it reveals texture, shape, dimension. It's just some shells sitting on a piece of white foam core about this big. It's not very pretty at all until we make the light work the way we want the light to work. And we understand how the shells will refract the light back to us, how it brings us back to the subject. We have to understand our subjects and our light. I think that when we use light and form and texture in a photograph, we invite people into the picture. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a dimensionality to it. And trying to create dimension in a two-dimensional world, two-dimensional world, the best way I know of is to light it so that you can feel the highlight and the shadows, and you know where the light's coming from, and you can kind of understand the image. We're talking about everything reflecting, right? How many lights in the picture? 2. We instantly know that because we've been awake since we were 4 days old. We know where light comes from. We understand what light does, that someone's standing in a doorway where they're lit from the side. We know lighting up here intrinsically. We know it. What happens is we tend to forget it when we get out to the set and we try to do something from lights in. We think, well, I brought 5 speed lights. I better use 5 speed lights. No, use only what you need to make the shot. Everything reflects, even this cloth hat. You see this little ridge right here? It's a specular. That's really every little fleck of lint or whatever, not lint, but whatever the texture of the hat is actually catching that light source and bouncing it right back to us. And yet it's not a shiny hat. We know it's not a shiny hat because we can see the texture of it. And that's the light scraping across the side of something that has texture, like an old barn would or these brick walls that we have here. We know that the jacket is shiny because it has what I call liquid highlights. The highlights are very smooth. The only way to achieve that is to understand how light works and how it reflects back to you. We have a face. What is this here? That's a specular, isn't it? That's actually the softbox. That's right back over there, behind him a little bit, catching this. But what does it do to us as viewers of the photograph? Isolates him, puts him in the space, gives him context. The light from this side lights up this side of his face. We're going to come back to this shot tomorrow and talk about placing exposure, but for now we lit it and based our exposure on this side of his face. And then I had to make sure that the light was broad enough to light this jacket up. Because it'd be a whole different photograph if we did not see the texture in that jacket. It'd be a whole different kind of photograph. We need to understand that light, when I say light matters, it matters where this goes. Have you ever seen a photographer work and not move the light? I have. I've seen the light set up and the model walk in front of the light and the photographer starts banging away. You know, the difference of 6 inches can change that photograph terrifically. You have to know where that light goes. I have a couple little whiz-wow rules that we'll talk about, but I want you to think about. Where we put the light is so very important. Yes?
Can you, a question from Photog AV, can you define what specular light is?
Yes.
That word for people?
Yes, and we're going to go back into those 5 areas of light right after break. But I'm going to tell you right now what a specular is a absolute reflection of the light source. The best way to think of it is, you guys have sun up here occasionally, right? Yeah. So on the 4 or 5 hours a year that you guys have sunlight, when you're driving along and it's late in the day and there's a guy in front of you who's got one of those shiny windows on the back of his pickup truck, and the sun's back here and it's hitting it, and you're going, oh God, that's a specular. It's an absolute reflection of the light source. Chrome bumpers, the light pops off. Now in photography, we've always considered just that to be the specular, that blinding point of light. Well, in reality, the light itself can be refracted back to you, reflected back to you by all kinds of things. That is a dampened version, a matted version of the light source hitting it. See, it becomes almost white here, almost white. We still have a little texture, but it's almost white. Our light sources are white. Speculars are, unless you've gelled the lights, white. And so this is a specular, this is an absolute reflection of the light source. We're going to talk about those areas and the true value and the shadow and the transitions between all 3. And you'll realize that you know this stuff intrinsically and you just haven't put it to use. And once you start putting it to use, you'll know every little millimeter helps. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay. And let's see here. And previsualization helps you understand what the light's normally going to do and how real you want to make the shot look. Now this is a picture of Rio on the beach in Florida, and the sun's back over there a little bit, and that's giving us this little rim light. I should take a moment and say, you know, for nearly 35 years, I photographed women. It was a terrible job. Someone had to do it. I was so happy to be that guy. And now I prefer real people. So those of you who want to shoot girls, have at it. I would like to shoot real people now. So we had the lovely Rio, who is a competitive surfboarder out there, and she had the tiny little competitive surfboard bikini on, and I thought, you know, I'm just so over shooting girls in bikinis holding surfboards. Put the sweatsuits on. Now, or the sweaters and stuff, which made her very happy because it was about 38 degrees on the beach that day in Florida. That was the morning after it had hard froze the beach at Sarasota. Hard froze. All these had frost on them. Hadn't happened since 1900s. And the wind was blowing, but I wanted her to look real, okay? Do you know what I'm saying? Add my little bit to it. So I've got a light on her face from this side to light this side of her face up, give us a little bit of light in here. I've got another light this way so that her face doesn't go shadow between the 2 lights. And then I let the feeling of the light come back this way. Letting the shadow drop in here, the surfboard in her, gives her a nice feeling of direction of the light. But I didn't want her to look overly lit, overly contrived lighting. Emotion in a photograph is important to me. And one of my little rules of thumb is for every light you add to the photograph, you take away a point of emotion until you get down to the points. Have you seen the ESPN guys with the football players here? And he's got a light here, and 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 a light here, you know, 16 lights. It's fun, it's cool to look at. Is there any emotion in that photograph? Seriously. No, it's like an illustration to me. It's like somebody could have painted it. It's cool, but it doesn't have any emotion. So for me, the more lights I add, the more I take away from reality and the more emotion that I start to lose. And I didn't want this to be an emotionless photograph. I wanted it to have meaning. So when I stood there on the beach and I saw this dark pole and her and the light back there, it was really, really a lot of, you know, she was basically a silhouette against it. I knew I couldn't have that. So I pre-visualized this. One of the things I do is I can actually say that most of the time when I'm shooting, I'm seeing the finished product in my head before I even set up the lights. As we're putting the lights up, I'm already seeing the print. I've already taken it through Photoshop. Or if I want to be really, really, really creative, I stick it in Snapseed. Whoa. Nah, I'm just kidding. I see it. I know what it's going to be. I know if it's going to be black and white when I'm shooting. I know if it's going to be black and white. Something you'll see later in the day, I generally shoot in black and white. Previews. Anybody know why?
If you're shooting raw, you could always go back and see.
Right, right. But why would I shoot in black and white? Because you'll never see light and texture ever in a color photograph like you'll see it in black and white. When you remove the context of color, you see texture and light and ratios and all of these things just jumping out at you. Back in the day, and believe me, folks, I struggle real hard. I don't want to be that curmudgeonly old photographer who goes, you know, back in my day, we had to take the film off the donkey, stake it off into the woods, and find a cave. I don't want to be that guy. I'm happy with digital. I love it. It's good. But back in the day, when we shot Polaroids, I shot black and white Polaroids, probably 20 black and white Polaroids to every color, because the black and white would give us that information. So when I discovered digital, that I could, with the digital, make the black and white, have it come up on my iPad or when I shoot tethered, which is 95% of the time, I can see more information. We used to shoot, I shot a lot of black and white, a lot of 8x10, a lot of 8x10. An 8x10 Polaroid was really, really expensive. Terribly expensive. So what we do, we shoot a sheet of Tri-X, and then run it into the darkroom and develop it in Deckdoll. That's about 18 seconds in the Deckdoll, and it's pretty much cooked, and make a quick contact print. That was our faux Polaroids in the day. So, but again, black and white. So I pre-visualize and try to make the shot look the way I see it in my head as being the shot that has the emotion to it. This is Deshawn, and he'd never modeled before, never done anything before. He's in the book that y'all got a copy of. Fantastic young man. Deshawn's dark skin means that I can't light him the same way to get the same effect as I would light maybe a Swedish model with blonde hair. Because a Swedish model with blonde hair isn't going to show me that, or that, or that, or that, or that, or that, or that. It's not going to be there. She's just going to be pale. Why is that? Something I just said earlier. Why is that?
She's going to reflect the light differently.
Yes, because what are these?
Speculars.
They're speculars. What color are speculars?
White.
White. So if the specular white is against a white background, probably not going to see it. But as the background, the subject's surface and color becomes darker, then the specular tends to stand out. Do you remember a wonderful model back in the 80s, I think, named Iman? Oh gosh,
Iman.
no. Huh?
Iman.
Not Iman. Grace
Jones.
Grace Jones. Mm. Do you remember, anybody remember Grace Jones? Mm-hmm. I think this woman had like 0.1% body fat. If that much. She's the most cut woman I ever remember seeing. She was very, very dark. So how do you photograph that very dark skin? Do you remember the shots of her? They oiled her up. Shot after shot after she's all oiled up so that the oil would then change the surface of her skin and you would see highlights. The only way we can make highlights on something dark is to create highlights. Or dimensions. The only way we can get dimension on something dark is to create highlights. So we take Deshawn and I use the lights and a little bit of canning, canning oil or, which he applied himself. Never touch the models. Also, never touch guy models who've never modeled before. That's a real rule, because they'll kill you. Deshawn was wonderful, but we got this nice shine and changed the surface texture of his skin, and it made a shot. And it makes a shot that's more dramatic because of those highlights and shadows than it would be without it. Yeah.
Do you make a distinction when photographing minority skin between using a silver reflector and a white reflector?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you speak to that a little
Yeah, a
bit?
silver reflector or a silver umbrella is by nature a specular light source. It is like a silver umbrella is, a gazillion, maybe a gazillion and a half, tiny little speculars that come off there, where a white umbrella is a diffused light coming off. So whether, when I take a silver umbrella and you take the sun and you get the umbrella thing, you can actually see that specular highlight, right? Sometimes it's kind of wavy looking. You turn it over to the white side, it's matte. It does the same thing on the skin. So where we have a white, smooth, diffused specular, we'd have a very sharp, bright, hard edge specular, because it would be really a reflection of that specular surface. And this young lady's actually on the cover of my new book, and I cannot get a hold of her to tell her she moved. So she's going to walk into a bookstore someday and say, "Oh my!" But she's wearing a black, shiny, satiny kind of top, and look how the light works so differently on her. She's smooth all the way through, and yet when we hit the velvet, it was a struggle to make sure that the light would actually give me that velvet, because it wanted to suck up the light. So how did I solve it? That's a 60-inch umbrella brought in really close. So the light is wrapping all the way around her. And then right below her is a little shiny card, and you can see the card in the lip. You can see it on the edge of the chin here. Under the chin is light, but that card that's down here, that's what's giving me this. And it's important for us. Do you know what the word deliberate means in photography? It means that everything we do for a reason. There's a guy who plays drums for a band called Rush. His name's Neil Peart. Mm-hmm. He's pretty good.
Best drummer ever.
Yeah, there's that too. He's an amazing drummer. And one of the things I learned from studying with Neil for a long weekend is that he does everything with deliberateness. There's nothing left to chance. Neil plays every note on those drums, and if you've ever heard pictures from an exhibition, that's a lot of notes. Every one of them are deliberate. Well, if Neil can play drums with deliberateness, do you think we should photograph with deliberateness? Everything we do, we own in that picture. It's our picture. We own every aspect of it. It's so important. This is something we have in the kitchen up there, and I wanted to do a demonstration, and we use the, anybody know what this is? It's fake crushed ice for doing drink shots. It's actually plexiglass. You put your drink in there and you fill it up with this, and they don't melt. It's really nice. But I wanted to show the texture and the color and the shape and the dimension of all of this. This is my favorite shooting surface. This is an old table from a welding company that is just, this top of this steel table's just been trashed. And I love it. You know, it's got two different patinas on both sides. So using light, bouncing back, again to answer the question, that's a specular. Those white, that is the softbox being reflected back to the camera. That is a white card being reflected back to the camera. So what we have to understand is that rule, that scientific rule, angle of incidence equals angle of reflection. Where we put things will reflect back. It's really, really hard to photograph things that are really shiny. A number of years ago, I was walking by a Williams-Sonoma store, and there's the catalog page right there in the store. They'd blown it up, made it a little bit big, you know, for point of purchase. And of course, you know, we're photographers. What do we, first thing we do? How do you light that? And there's this big stew pot, big silver stew pot, and there's this white highlight this side and a white highlight this side, and right in the middle, got to put the camera somewhere, there's a dark area. And in the dark area, there's a 4x5 camera and a guy doing this, holding a shutter thing. It's like, I guess they didn't see it, or they just, of course, this was before Photoshop. Yes, there was photography before Photoshop. I know. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? So they didn't take him out. The photographer got himself into the Williams-Sonoma catalog, apparently several times. But I wanted to create this, and I couldn't just put a light on it. I had to, because it's a glossy object, it's just going to reflect my dark studio. I had to create what it reflects. Sometimes I see on the forums, hey, how do you light a car? You don't. You light what the car reflects. You light everything around the car. The car will be then reflecting what you've lit. If you put a car here, light that white wall. The car will reflect the white wall. If you were going to do a shot of Seattle reflected back in the hood of a Corvette, and you went to rent the Corvette, would you get a black Corvette or a white Corvette? If you get a white Corvette, the shot didn't work. The white Corvette's not going to reflect back. You need to have the contrast of those white lights against the dark surface for the reflection. Well, you know what a mirror is? It's black. The backside of a mirror is black to get that reflection. There's a wonderful process called tintype, where you actually make a negative, and then you apply it to a black background, and you have this beautiful photograph. I've been shooting tintypes lately. I love them. Cool. No dark room. Anyway. And even in nature, we can find it. Is this manipulated much in Photoshop? A little, 20% burn on the edges. But essentially, it's just a little dried patch of this is at a very beautiful beach in Houston, down in southern Houston. We're at this gorgeous beach, and everybody's photographing the beach, and I'm photographing the dried up mud patch that was by where the car is parked. Because I thought it was kind of cool. But that's basically the bright part of the sun coming back into something not very shiny, but shiny enough to give me a specular in the center of it. And it kind of makes the shot work, I think. And this is a brand new shot I did of a young lady, Brianna, and I asked her if she could float, and she said just for a few seconds. So it's great when you're working with somebody who really just stand there and jump like this over and over again, and you kind of go, I got it, no, let's just do one more. Oh, no, let's just do one more. And they do it, it's really cool. But this is in the shade. Didn't work in the shade. A couple of things didn't work in the shade. There was no contrast between her and the background. So I had to do something. So I put a light aiming back this way on the background. Why? Why did I move it so it's coming back towards me?
To show the texture.
To show the texture. To wipe the old wooden doors, to wipe it with a little bit of light. Now, how much brighter is it than the ambient? About 2/3 of a stop. That's it. It's coming right in here. You can see this is the ambient up here. This is the strobe coming in here on a white door. So not very much strobe. It wasn't like, I didn't have to take out a 2400 watt second unit to this. Very small strobe. It's a ProPhoto 300 cranked all the way down with a steel screen diffuser over the front to actually cut the light by another stop. I have neutral density filters for lights. And they get really hot, so you have to remember. And this one up here is just a softbox, little softbox coming right in. She just jumped and looked into the box. But what I wanted to do was to create dimension. So I have highlight, I have shadow, I have transfers and transitions all through here that says that the light is soft because the transitions are soft. The contrast is still there. It's still a deep shadow. The transitions are soft. That's important. That's how we gauge whether a photograph is hard light or not. Do you remember your first influences in photography? Do you remember the first photograph you ever saw that really? Well, for me, it was when I was a kid, but later in life, bring up the second one here, which is, what is good light? Later in life, I kind of drifted away from, I was making pictures of railroads and stuff. That was when I was a kid and having fun doing that. And I picked up a magazine, and it had this photograph of a dancer in it. It's a black and white photograph, and it was taken by a photographer named Arthur Elgort. And when I saw that picture by Arthur Elgort, I said, I got to do this again. This is cool. I never really thought of people taking pictures of people. I mean, the only pictures I ever looked at were landscapes and that type of thing. I'd fallen in love with photography again by actually walking into a photo gallery in Carmel when I was 14. We were there on vacation, and I walked into this little gallery right next to the restaurant. We were having lunch, and it literally took my parents about an hour and a half to get me out of there. And hanging on the walls were Edward Weston, Imogen Cunningham, Ansel Adams, and I had never, ever imagined anyone could take a photograph like that, ever. And so that's where my life was. I was taking pictures of rocks and stuff. And I saw this beautiful ballet shot by Arthur Elgort, and I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. I want to do that. I don't think I could have picked anyone better, by the way, than Arthur Elgort. If you're not familiar with his work, and I'm not going to ask, but if you're a fashion photographer and you don't know who Arthur Elgort is, you better look it up. He's one of the masters. All the one-named guys. How many do you know? Arthur? Peter? And yeah? Stephen? We all know Stephen from the famous Stephen Meisel book of Madonna. Patrick? Irving. Huh? Irving? Yeah. When you talk about Patrick in New York, everybody knows you're talking about Patrick de Marchelier. If you're talking about Peter, it's Peter Lindbergh. These are the big names. Are there up and coming names? Absolutely. Wonderful up and coming names. But these were the guys that you know, back in the day, those were my guys. And they're still shooting. Most of them are still shooting. I know Stephen is.
Just want to let you know, Digital Post Guru says, Creative Live Pete's, this guy is great. They're already
I
loving
love
you,
that
Don.
guy.
Let's see, a question from Sam Cox from Loveland, Colorado, who always has fabulous questions. Thank you, Sam. Would one way of learning lighting be to study photos and estimate lighting diagrams for them, perhaps, or try to recreate them?
There are many, many books out there. I know a couple. There are many, many books out there that have lighting diagrams in them. What you have to be very careful of, are these lighting diagrams or napkin sheets? Because lighting diagrams should give you a point of reference. Square feet. Where those lights are placed are so important. And I've seen so many books where they just say, oh, the subject was here and there's a Profoto 600 over here. What does that tell you? Nothing. We were talking at lunch the other day, or yesterday, about the old books, the magazines, Popular Photography. Every time they would run a photograph, they'd put the film below it. Kodachrome 25, 125th of a second at 5.6. So what does that mean? Does that mean the next time you're at Mount Rainier, you can, oh, I remember, that was Kodachrome 20. Trust me, it probably ain't gonna work out too good. It's useless. If there's a grid for you to follow, then I think it's great. However, you will never learn photography from a book. Not even mine. Even though mine would probably be closer than most. No, you'll never learn photography from a book. You need to read the book, put it down, and go outside and shoot. It was so much harder in the days when we had to spend money on film and processing, you know, so I'm not whining about it, but it did. Go shoot it.
And I think actually Sam's question was about studying photos and then like this one say
Deconstructing?
Deconstructing.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sam.
And creating your
Absolutely.
own lighting diagrams based on what you think it might have been.
Absolutely, Sam. Sorry, I misunderstood that. You start deconstructing right away. And after the break, when we go into subject-centric lighting, Sam, we will absolutely show you how to deconstruct an image. You'll know it, and you'll start to see it. You might not be able to tell what brand of softbox, but you sure as heck will know that it's a softbox type light when you start looking at what the subject does back. Okay? Anything else?
Quick
Yes.
question from Greg Mack is wondering if you used a shoot-through or bounce umbrella on the photo of the woman, the white woman in the black velvet blouse.
I used a bounce 60-inch umbrella. I use bounced umbrellas probably 80% of the time. And I'll show you why. Because remember, I'm deliberate. I don't grab a light because I read about it on a forum, although I did buy a filter set that I read on Kelby's forum. I thought, oh, Kelby likes it, I'll buy that. That's pretty cool. I light because of deliberateness. I light because of what the light will do for me. And when we get into what the tools do, you'll start to see, I guarantee you by lunch, you'll understand deliberateness and why we choose the tools that we do. Really. Are we good? Okay. This is, going blind as a photographer really has its, I got to get some, those, what are they, bifocals? The guy said, you want bifocals? I'm thinking, oh man, I don't want to wear bifocals. Then later my wife goes, well, you can't see them. Oh, he didn't say that.